Good morning, Clay. What's new on the Norfolk?
Well, we were having a little burst of sunshine for 2 or 3 days. It's been kind of gloomy and cold. I've built a fire in the fireplace 2 or 3 nights of late, and I might do that tonight with the basketball game on. But it's going to be a nice afternoon.
Really will. I thought of you. I think that was Monday. We have a new sponsor on the show, and they make fishing lures. And SmackDown doesn't want me to read them because I don't know how to say a lot of this stuff properly.
I would love for you to read it.
We need Clay to do the read for this all the time.
Well, Clay's a part of this on. They do a little thing on
Tuesday morning when Bruce is on with us from Pradco, and the lot of the stuff that they make, is stuff that I don't do. I'm not a spin guy, with. Bass fishing with lures. I'm a fly guy, but I'm interested in learning. That's not, I'm not opposed to any of that stuff. Everybody's like, you're a fly fishing person or aficionado or whatever. So you're out there in the river and you see the guys fishing with bait or spin guys, and you turn your nose up. I was like, nah, I do some of that too. I said, everybody buys their license and they get to decide how they fish. It's their right. And, I don't keep fish, but I said if somebody, I would keep a crappie or a walleye, but the rest of them I consider sport, and I, let them go. But if somebody wants to keep a trout, cook it, that's great. That's what they're for. I'm
glad you just referred to that fish known as a crappie, Clay, because I'll just expose myself to those, verbally here.
It's not a crappie.
Yeah, I did a. It wasn't a live read, but I was asked to do a 30-second spot at the last radio station I worked for a piece of real estate on the White River, and they were advertising the idea that it's great crappie fishing, but I said crappie and sent it back to them, not knowing that I sent it incorrectly, and they let me know that I was pretty wrong about that and sounded like an idiot.
But see, you learn. That's all you can do. You roll forward and learn. And
I just like
in
crappie.
Pennsylvania, they may call that same fish something else. They may call it a perch or a white perch. I'm not sure, but they're in different regions they call fish by different names. It's the same fish. So
all right,
I'll call it brim. I call a brim one thing. I'm out in Colorado and I say a brim, and they look at me kind of funny, and so it's like, hey, it's all good. And I bet they sold their land or whatever. I bet they moved that property if they had.
They might have sold
might
have sold the property, but they never paid me for the ad. So we'll see if I can work on that in a couple of days.
On that. Yeah.
Let's move over to some. Let's flop over to football talk here. It seemed obvious to us who watched SEC football on a week-by-week basis that Alabama just was that much better than the other teams in the college football playoff. I think it's unfair to ask the question, is this the greatest team of all time 2 days after the national championship game?
Yeah, and I've seen a couple of those discussions. It might have been Reese Davis that went there after the game, and I was like, really? I said, what are you measuring them against this year? I said, they survived is what they did in COVID, and you're comparing it. You don't know what's out there week to week. I mean, I give them a lot of credit for going undefeated in this time but if there was ever a program or a team that was built to survive COVID, it's Alabama this year, in that they had, unlimited depth. So if you lost a player or two here, you just rolled. And they lost players at halftime or in the second half against Ohio State, and they plugged in guys and they could roll. But this wasn't their best defense. It might have been one of their best offenses. I didn't see a lot of sparkle in their special teams, and they've had that at times. They didn't this time. We don't know what their punter's like. That guy, he's like the Maytag repairman. He just, you don't even know what he can do. But if you want to compare him to LSU last year, it's a nice comparison. So are they the best team of all time? Well, they're about the same as the LSU team was last year. And all of those guys are in the NFL, and all these Alabama guys will be in the NFL. So I don't know how you can say this is the best of all time. I thought Southern Cal with Leinart, Bush, those guys, that was pretty sweet too. And I can go back and point at some other teams in the 70s, 80s, 90s that dominated for what they were at that particular time. And that's all you can do is play against the teams of your era.
Clay Henry, from publisher of Hogs Illustrated, joining us here on Halftime. Clay, the overarching discussion this morning on the morning show was, is the dominance by Alabama good or bad for college football? And I'm kind of curious to hear your standpoint on that, just because, it seems like, rightfully so, Alabama's earned this spot. They recruit the best, they play the best, they got the best coaching and everything about it. And I don't see any end to their dominance anytime soon. Whether or not they expand the playoff, they push it to 8 teams, 16 teams, whatever. Alabama's the best for a reason, and I don't see them dropping anytime soon.
Probably not. They're probably, but it doesn't take much to get out of kilter. I'd say Nick Saban is rolling pretty good right now, but health is sometimes a fragile thing for a 69-year-old. So it would not take much to change that. Not wishing him any harm. I'm just saying that's reality. I'm 66, and I watch my health, and I know that I have to do things to be careful. And I'm not talking about COVID. I'm just talking about life in general. I've got 2 or 3 friends that are my age that are, one had an aneurysm, you just don't know, you're given today, and that's it. So, and, when you're young and you see a 4 or 5 year period of dominance or something either in pro sports, baseball, whatever, nothing lasts forever, and it all is cyclical. So, the people at Alabama, they need to enjoy what they've got right now, because it's in, you think, well, Alabama's been good forever. Well, I can go through, 7 or 8 coaches in a row where, Mike DeBose and, Shula and Francione. It was not something that they were particularly excited about. So it can come and it can go.
Well, and I think part of what SmackDown's getting at, and this is an issue for me as far as the teams that can win a championship. Let's say Alabama isn't part of the conversation. Saban retires. So then it's Clemson, or it's Ohio State, or maybe Texas A&M is finding a way to nudge their way into the conversation, or maybe Georgia on the other side. Notre Dame is in appearance every once in a while, Oklahoma too, but it's the same schools. It's the same schools year in, year out that always, and I know you're right about the cycles, and sports are cyclical. Right now we just seem to be in like a 12-year cycle where it's basically down to like 4 schools.
Let me switch sports for you. So you go to college basketball, and they let 68 teams in the playoff, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same teams every year winning, isn't it?
Well, for a while there, it certainly felt like
you get my point. I don't care, adding 4 more teams. The 4 teams that you add in are not going to beat Alabama. They're probably not going to beat Ohio State. I'm just talking about on a usual year. So I don't know that if you go 4 teams to 8 teams, and then you'll be wanting to go to 16, as they do in the other divisions. I'd listen to Saban. I'd listen to his day after press conference yesterday, and he kind of went through with what adding teams would do, and he's not against it. He was for playing a 10-game SEC schedule because he thought that their team would be, more capable of rolling through that kind of a schedule. So I get what you're saying, and I may be interested in expanding, but I don't know that it changes the outcome that much.
I agree completely.
You're right about that, too. But, look at college basketball. There were 7 different national champions in the last, if I'm counting correctly, 11 years. And college football has been dominated by the 2 programs of Alabama, Clemson. So, and again, it might be apples and oranges comparing football to basketball. That just might be the case, I think, here. And the other question,
you might have an upstart playing in the championship game if you have 8, but I think the top team's probably still going to win.
Well, certainly Alabama was a heck of a lot better than everybody else this year. We're moving over to college basketball, Hogs and LSU. We'll talk with Clay about that right after the break. Stay with us. And Clay Henry joining us for this last segment of hour number 1. And then I guess we got to do the meat hooks since we don't have a football. I have the national championship box score to crumble if we have to, but that's not a Razorback box score. I've got the box score of Arkansas beating Georgia. Maybe we'll do that one and then print out another one from Arkansas LSU later today. Clay, I think it's going to be a really entertaining basketball game. I think you're going to see two teams getting up and down the floor, and I think you're going to see both teams getting in the 80s today. You know, and again, I said a couple segments ago, it's simplistic to say it's like whichever team outscores the other, because that's what sports is about. But this one to me is, I think these are two high-octane offenses, and even if LSU doesn't have Cam Thomas, I think they're about as dangerous as anybody else in this league. And for me, I think Arkansas needs to have some consistency from the guys that have been scoring for them of late.
Yeah, it's interesting in that both teams really are proud of their offensive rebounding, and Arkansas has been a good rebounding team, period, this year, in stark contrast to what they were last year. I mean, it's, you know, you see from one year to the next how things can be dramatically different. LSU dominated Arkansas and Baton Rouge last year on the glass. I mean, it was something like 25 difference in offensive rebounds. I mean, it was like, okay, let's just throw it up there. We'll go get it and put it back in. And Arkansas couldn't do anything about it. And this is a team that can defensive rebound. So that's something to watch tonight. And I think if the game, if there's something that would decide it, it would be if Arkansas can control their defensive glass. LSU gives up a lot of points, and their defense is a little suspect. But they think they can go down and score, so they're willing to trade with you, and then hoping that you hit a slow spot, and then that's when they spurt away from you. So you gotta avoid droughts, and you got a defensive rebound. I think Arkansas is this is a game that they're probably looking forward to playing and have a chance to win on the road. And maybe this is one that replaces losing at home to Missouri. You got to get a few road victories, and this is one that I think Arkansas likes to play LSU. I think this is, and I think it could be a really fun game. To answer your question,
how do you stack these two storylines of the last couple of games? And really, for Devo Davis, it was just the Georgia game where he just explodes, and I think he looks like a magician with that left hand and fills the box score. And obviously, for next year and maybe the year after, seeing him do something like that really gives you some great thoughts about what he can do. But in the context of this season, his emergence against Georgia and Vance Jackson finally looking like the player that Muss and the coaching staff thought they were getting. Where do you stack the importance of those two players in the context of moving forward?
Well, obviously, Vance gives them some offense, and if they've got the floor spaced right, that passes can come to him. If and it looks like they're going to share it a little more, they're not going to be so much quick trigger. If you can go deep in the shot clock and move it around, and then you've worked him free, he can be deadly. Now, I'm going to go a little different direction in what I think is really important. What's going on right now is the two freshmen, and not so much Devo on his offense, but his ability and the energy he brings to the defense, and the ability to cover and switch and play just about anybody. His skill set defensively is he can cover a point guard, or he can probably cover a 3 or a 4 because he's long and athletic. And then Jalen Williams, the same thing. His ability to switch, his ability to play defense and defensive rebound. And he looks like he enjoys playing. And I didn't think that was the case early on, but it looks like, hey, I'm having fun out here. And if that's happening, that is a major deal when you've got two freshmen that all at once are enjoying the game and not feeling pressure. Those two guys can go on the road and repeat the way they played for the bulk of the Georgia game. This could be a fun team. And then you could see, Justin Smith eventually coming back and adding to what's being developed. Because what's happened in the last couple of games is that we've forgotten that they were without Justin Smith. And that's a major development because that looked like a huge stumbling block when he went down. In that, the team, would they be able to absorb that loss? Well, I think they have, and it's forced them to kind of find some more parts.
Well, Clay, I think when you also look at it, too, with adding more parts, and Coach Musselman said a couple days ago, Baby Ola should be ready to go by about mid-February. What could he possibly bring to the table? Obviously, maybe not necessarily starting minutes, but Clay, it just seems to me it's another good 3, 4, 5 kind of a guy, 6'9", and can play some kind of help out and just keep that steady rotation going between however many minutes Vanover gets a game, but particularly with Jalen Williams and Vance Jackson.
Yeah, another guy can play around the basket, play around glass. I haven't seen him. This is he's kind of an unknown quantity to me, but I know that they coveted him and they're excited to have him. So you're right. But you get into a situation now, he hasn't played with this team, and how do you insert, and how does it all mesh? Right now it looks like they're meshing things nice. This coach doesn't like to play guys just to play guys. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you go on the floor, there's a reason you're out there, right. and if you don't accomplish whatever the goal he gave you, you're back there beside him pretty quick. And he's he'll go 7 or 8, and sometimes 6 or 7. So just adding guys, I'm not sure that's so. Let's see what happens with him and how that works out.
What needs to happen moving forward too? Also, Desi Sills was going on a little bit of a dry spell. Still, I guess you might say he's in one a little bit, though he did go 3 of 8 against Georgia and netted 8 points. What needs to happen to try to keep him trending upward? Because, Clay, in my mind, I mentioned this a couple segments ago, if you can get Desi Sills back to the Desi that we saw preseason where he dropped 20 against Auburn, this team is dangerous moving forward when you got that many scores, that many guys that can get buckets.
Yeah, see, I think Desi's role has changed, and I don't think that's what he has to do to be valuable for this team. Okay. I think defense, effort, going after loose balls, attacking the rim, playing in transition, and then really, being a pest defensively. I think that's his role, and I think that they're scoring enough, and they don't want somebody that's going 1 for 8 and then 4 for 7 or 3 for 12. They want something that's consistent that they can count on, and so I think that you'll see him kind of be under the radar as far as his offense. Mm-hmm. But then you look at the box score, and there's 2 steals, and there's 3 assists, there's a block, and not many turnovers. So what I think he has to do is, play within himself and let the game come to him. And then there might be a game that he pops for 20 when all at once he hits a couple of shots in transition. I'm talking about threes, and then the shots just start, if you hit a couple of shots, this team will find you. And then it might be 3 or 4 shots, and all at once you've got 15 points.
Clay, we're almost at baseball season, man. We got 5 weeks. I think
I'm in
5.5
season.
weeks. I know I need it.
I'm in my little happy place right now because I'm working on a project. And I love projects. And then I love to see them kind of come together, when a plan all comes together. But I'm working on our baseball preview, and I've spent some time with coaches, and Matt Jones is helping me, and he's really good at baseball coverage. And this looks like another really good team for Dave Van Horn. A lot of depth, a lot of arms, pitching-wise. I don't know really who's going to pitch where yet, and they may not know exactly. This is the time where, they're throwing bullpens and trying to work their pitch counts up and just see how things, who's able to throw strikes, and then they'll scrimmage a couple of times. But it's, when you talk about Christian Franklin in center field, I'm going to ask you a question, Phil. Would you have thought that you could have just replaced Dominic Fletcher and not even realized he was gone?
I know. The only way you can tell is that one bat's right-handed and the other's a lefty.
Yep. But Christian Franklin is a really smooth operator in center field, and I think we kind of know him a little bit for his offense right now. But he is really good out there, and they've got some decisions to make on depth on how to play guys and where they want to platoon. But that's a really good situation when you've got 12 or 13 position players and you're in the COVID era. You just we talked about Alabama football. You don't know what's going to happen from one weekend to the next, and what guys you're going to need to be able to play multiple positions, slide around. Braden Webb can play center field. They've got some nice pieces to this puzzle. Matt Goodhart's starting to kind of figure out how to throw it a little bit. And then you got the old rocking chair, Casey Opitz. It sits back there and just kind of runs everything at catcher. And that is a special piece to have.
College student in a rocking chair, but you are right about that. Clay, we're up against the top of the hour break, so we'll let you go. Thanks as always.
Thank you all.
You got it, and certainly be looking forward to reading his baseball preview in Hogs Illustrated. Now think about some of the stuff he said about Arkansas baseball. This baseball season in the SEC, mini major league, it's going to be nuts.